Hi, I'm Eric Lanask with TMC. We're here at Cloud Expo in New York. I'm talking with Steve Surfaro. Steve's from Access Communications. Steve, good to see you. Thanks for joining us again.
Yeah, great to see you again. Thank you. And wonderful show. Another pleasant surprise. Cloud computing is always a really excellent show to be at for our partners that are cloud hosting providers and people that are interested in physical security in the cloud and other applications.
So what's some of the buzz, not just here at the show, but in general that you're hearing? There's obviously a lot of conversation, a lot of things taking place around cloud.
Yeah, it's interesting. The buzz is, and I do a lot of events, so I actually just came last week from the law enforcement information management, and so many markets that hadn't before are adopting the cloud. And it's interesting, even second tier and third tier cities are deploying private and public cloud solutions. So we had a session yesterday called Criminal Calendar and Pattern Identification in the cloud. So what we did was we linked some of our video analytic case studies, both with NYPD and other cities, talked about some of the trends that happen in crime versus time, and linking that with video evidence and how it all can be useful. And of course, you know, everything is deployed in either a private or a public cloud, so it's a wonderful way of mixing up the data that you get from sensors, from video cameras and access control systems alike. And we had standing room only there, and a lot of people were extremely interested in how the data trends and how people can use the cloud to save money. You know, so in other words, when crime goes up during the hotter times of year, and you know, in some cities at least that is. Other cities it's not. Like in Phoenix, it's not a function of month of the year because it's hot all the time here. there, but New York, you know, Dallas, I gave examples of that where it increases. So perhaps the usage of different aspects, or the spike in uses of, let's say, physical security data is wonderfully taken care of and economically taken care of by elasticity and agility in the cloud.
Interesting, and it's almost amazing how many different and unique use cases people are coming up with. It's not so much what you can do in the cloud, but the different ways in which you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's if you take one thing that's interesting is in New York City, when you passed into the Lincoln Tunnel, your license plate got scanned by a solution that's deployed in a private cloud. And one thing that is happening, I can't name names, but a couple of our major retail partners are going to be deploying license plate capture and recognition in the cloud using our cameras, and then connecting to either a loyalty system or automatically to a will call system. So when they drive up, you know, in a drive-through or a particular distribution point, product distribution point, the goods are already waiting there. So one of the things in retail and quick service, the quicker that you can get people through these areas, the less manpower you need, and the higher the satisfaction for customers is. You know, in QSR, it's like McDonald's, it's 70% of their business is actually done through drive-thrus.
Now, you've talked about one or the other a few times. What's the difference? Is there a difference really between people doing these use cases, leveraging private or public cloud?
Yeah, there's a big difference, but it's starting to blur. It's kind of interesting because private cloud deployments are where the typical go-to for an agency, whether it was a state agency or a federal government agency, but more and more, both agencies, retail establishments are actually availing themselves of services because, you know, their facilities are widespread and they have enough to do with their own data center monitoring than to expand further to accommodate, you know, other uses. You know, so the ability for these users to get data out of public clouds is there. It's not just word of mouth. It's not just infrastructure anymore, it's data. So the data is the wealth of it, and the more sensors that you have, the better off it is. And the big issue in the past was security. So we've accommodated we've taken a really important step and protected the endpoint better. So we have a new digital certificates capability in our cameras and access control devices. The digital certificate essentially gets authenticated in the cloud. And so it protects both of the endpoints. You know, I'm not going to say they're hack-proof, but they are protected from being hacked.
I've heard several people mention today that there really isn't such a thing as hack-proof.
Correct. And, security and a really good logical security professional recognizes that it's a journey, not a destination, that you have to learn. And, you know, perhaps you hire a pen tester, or I'm going to go so far as white hat hacker, you know, but you know what? These people actually, you'd be surprised, in a lot of organizations, these people are present in a lot of very smart companies. So they understand, security processes, and they understand the hacker mindset, and they make these systems a lot more stronger and more resilient. You know, so probably the latest thing now that we're seeing is watering holes in different applications. So, you know, it's where different users, hackers actually look for a site that users go to, you know, from random locations often, and they might not have any relationship at all, but then they infect that site with some seemingly benign code, and then once those users take the code back, it hatches, and you wind up having a distributed denial of service. Yeah, so it's so we're on top of it. A lot of the really great logical security companies, you know, like Dell SecureWorks, IBM XForce, are really on top of it. I'm happy to say. You know, it's just a question of whether industry is going to, you know, pay extra for those systems. But we're ready on the security side.
Well, eventually they very likely will. Steve, it's good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us here again.
It's great. Thank you so much for having us. Appreciate it.